and welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Reena, and there's also Olive, who is a little chatty right now. You hear that in the background.
Well, I mean, chatty, snores, body slams into the door. One way or another, we'll hear her.
The door and now wants to leave again.
Yep. That's fine. That's not unusual. It's fine. So we are gonna run down, like we did before, the last 4 episodes of The Mandalorian.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, it's like I feel like it just happened so fast. Like, even looking back at 4 weeks, I'm like, oh my god, that was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on everywhere. So I think time is a weird structure for everybody right now.
Time is just a mortal concept anyway.
Time is never time at all.
Time is a flat circle.
As Billy Corgan once high-pitched sang. But yeah, the general, before we go into each episode, general feeling, do you think this was a better back half or a better first half?
Better back half. There is
mixed.
More. I feel like I don't know. I felt like there was more. Like, it was centered around the mission and less like, here, hold my baby, I gotta go do a thing.
See, I love that kind of episode though. So for me, I think this had good moments and not as many good full episodes.
Okay, but I also might have a little bit of a bias because this second half of this season caused me to go viral on TikTok with a hot take around Boba Fett, so I feel like this season had more personal benefit to me.
Yeah.
The second half of the season anyway.
Yeah, I just I really liked one episode from front to back in the second half, and then everything else had stuff I liked, as opposed to the first half where I liked pretty much every episode front to back, a lot. So I get that for the most part, most people want to see plot move forward, but I like the idea of the show being a serial. Like, I like the Monster of the Week style episode. So for me, I like all these episodes. I just like parts of them more than the whole.
I guess I don't really watch anything that's Monster of the Week, nor have I in a very long time, if I think about it. But you also should consider I am a chronic binge watcher, so this is a different way for me to I am not used to watching a thing a week.
I am so happy that Disney Plus does it this way though.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Well, the conversation for an entire season would be done on a weekend. And I don't miss that, having given up on Netflix. I don't miss that at all.
Well, I guess because I'm not even watching any simulcasts on anime, because that was the only other time where I was watching an episode a week. Even Demon Slayer, I just finished in one go.
Yeah. It's just, it's even though nobody's, in the office, it's nice to have a water cooler talk again, where you can just, once the weekend ends, everybody can kind of have a conversation about one episode instead of just having to be like, here's 8 to 12 episodes worth of information you guys all get to talk about casually for the half-hour break you have during the day.
Oh, I lied. I totally watched Game of Thrones that way. I didn't binge it. I forget. I don't know what time is anymore.
Fair. All right. Well, let's jump into the episodes. The first one of this batch being the Jedi, which is the one that I mentioned being very good front to back. This is the most it felt like every episode of The Mandalorian feels like The Mandalorian. This episode felt connected to the animated shows a lot, and not just because Ahsoka was in it, but it felt like one of those episodes. It felt like one of those missions you would see on Clone Wars, which I appreciated a lot.
I feel like they did a lot of tying back to the animated stuff in this season, more so than I think the previous season for sure.
I think last season was more about setting up that this can stand on its own and that they didn't want to risk anything with it connecting as much. Whereas this year, after the success of that, they were like, oh, no, just go for it.
Oh, no, totally. But yeah, so this one, and I can see what you mean. It definitely did feel like the animated series a lot more, but I don't know. It just was so cool to like see Ahsoka in live action, because that was something that obviously like hasn't happened, because it's a character that started off as animated.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked that aspect. Plus, it was really nice to see someone not only wield a lightsaber but dual wield.
Yeah, I mean, we did get that before, but not in this way. It was a lot of lightsaber dancing when we saw that before. As opposed to this, where it was deliberate movements. It wasn't just showy, ridiculous, or, 4 lightsabers at a time, as in the case of Grievous.
I meant like in The Mandalorian.
Yeah. But yeah, that
all the lightsabers. You get a lightsaber.
That intro with her, like, it's awesome that they didn't hold back. They literally opened the episode with her. And confirming the rumors of Rosario Dawson having played her. Like, just jump into it. Why not? Because it's what everybody wants to see out of that episode. So you might as well.
For sure. And then I'm trying to think. And also, this was like a big reveal, not just of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, but also Baby Yoda is not named Baby Yoda.
Well, we already knew that, but
or pistachio.
Yeah. Or almond extract. If you're going pistachio.
By the way, that was my roommate taking my tantruming dog out of my room for me.
That's fine.
I wonder how many huffs you're going to hear on this episode. She was so mad.
As far as I can tell, a couple of chirps and then the door.
Chirps, and huffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we learned, we actually got some backstory on our little friend Grogu.
Yeah, he was there.
Which we did. He was fucking there.
He also escaped the Jedi. Well, I guess that was the Senate. I was gonna say also escaped like older Yoda through. He Shawshanked it out the pipes. I'm curious if we will ever get that actual backstory.
I'm hoping in the next season.
Yeah, it's just details.
Inevitably he's gonna come back at some point. But anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
I'm curious if they'll ever confirm or not, like if he was there at Order 66. Because that's gonna be.
But that's how I understood it.
Well, it's weird because they sort of danced around it. They didn't. He was at the Jedi Temple at one point. That's what I mean. Like, how did that happen if he was there and what have you? But yeah, the details were a little vague, but I did appreciate in that moment, or just after that moment when they do the floating rock, segment, if we heard what Ahsoka has seen happen to people with attachments, to Jedi with attachments, and I appreciated that reference to Anakin a great deal. Having watched Clone Wars, do have an affinity for Anakin that I don't think is there if you only watch the prequels so much. And it's to then get the confirmation of Hayden Christensen coming back for Obi-Wan Kenobi is a lot. That's a lot of Vader lore stuff that we have started and will continue to get, which I'm excited about.
I liked that in this episode, stepping back from the Jedi stuff for a minute, or something we've seen in, the last couple seasons off and on, is what happens when a power falls and, smaller subgroups kind of like take over.
The vacuumous aspect of power grasps, yeah.
Yeah, so we saw this in the first episode, the Western one, when they talked about, the miners that, took over, or or whatever group had taken over the mining city, and they had to have the sheriff
when Cobb Vanth, with Boba Fett's armor, came in to clean stuff up, Tombstone style.
Yep. But then now we're seeing another aspect of it where another group has come in and staked claim on a city that's not theirs. But, I like the attention to detail on what would happen if a regime fell, right? Because whether that is a good ruler or a bad ruler, whichever, it still leaves, cities and planets and whatever vulnerable. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden, the winners take over everything, right?
Well, and that's the thing, is it's that's a thing that's played a lot in like Marvel stuff, with not the galactic side of Marvel stuff, but you look at the 2018 Spider-Man game, and at the beginning of it, you defeat Kingpin, and as he's going to jail, he says I was keeping everything in check. I was the power that made sure everything was in check, and now the city's going to be in chaos. It's that's sort of the mentality of with the Empire gone, you're going to see the smaller, can't think of a different word other than gangs or organizations, I guess, will pop up and try to reach for that power a little bit more. So, yeah, it is cool to see some of that come through here.
And plus, when it was, defeated by, the rebels, they're not exactly, incredibly organized.
Well, yeah, and now, this is...
They're working on it now.
Yeah, and it's officially the New Republic at this point. So it is a government, but it's a young government that's not really in control of everything, and that's where, there's still, we'll get there in another episode that we talk about coming up, but there's still Empire bases all over the place. We even saw it in the first half of this season already too. So
they need a galactic Hamilton. They need to set some processes in place. They need to establish the Fed.
Set to hip hop. But yeah, I just, this is my my favorite full episode of this half of the season, just because it was all of that stuff. It felt standalone, like a standalone adventure, but had plenty of the lore dump to satisfy that want as well. And I just appreciate how far into the sort of samurai cinema it went with the latter half, especially. Oh
yeah.
For instance, I off the top of my head, I'm missing the actress's name from the top of my head, but it is Bruce Lee's goddaughter who played the villain in this episode, and then obviously Michael Biehn from Aliens and Terminator. So yeah, there was a lot about this episode that I liked, including the casting and all that stuff. So
Listen, I will never say no to a bow staff fight, especially when one's made of Beskar.
And we got another one, so get pumped. The next episode was honestly okay. So the tragedy is where we get Boba Fett back.
I like to call it the redemption of Boba Fett, because that's what that episode was.
I didn't love this episode. This is
oh my god,
probably my least favorite of the entire season.
Why? It was so badass.
But it had nothing else to it. It was all action, and the little bit of dialogue that was in it I hated it. It was stilted and didn't come through naturally at all. It felt like people were reading cue cards to me, and that bummed me out so much, because this is the episode I should probably be the most excited for, as far as like finally fulfilling a thing that has been wanted for decades now, and it just didn't come close to meeting that. So I shouldn't say I hated the episode or anything, but it's probably the most disappointed I felt through the show so far.
It was also really short.
Yeah, because it had like no dialogue, which is like it's just kind of a bummer that like it's exciting for everybody else to see everybody else get super pumped about this episode. There were just things I couldn't see past as far as like production goes, and that's why I'm bummed out about it.
I was
which
like,
is that's a me thing for sure, but yeah.
I was elated to like see Boba Fett actually be cool, because like I never really was into Boba Fett because I never really saw the point. I was like, he just stands there and then he got eaten by a Sarlacc. Well, oh wow, he delivered Han Solo and carbonite, and yeah, okay.
Well, that's the thing, is intimidating Boba Fett is only in Empire, because in Return of the Jedi, there's no point for. Like there's nothing. I mean,
all that happens like in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, but like in Empire, he's just an imposing, threatening visage, where he just like he goes in, he's dry and cool, and then just gets the shit done, and then from there you get kind of the cartoon demise of Return of the Jedi, which is what it is, but. Yeah, it was. I wish I got more out of it than what I got out of it.
I think it's my love of fight choreography, and before he even got the armor back, just leveling those stormtroopers was phenomenal. Like, I know you don't like the production and the lack of dialogue, but whoever choreographed those like fight scenes, that was amazing.
Oh, it's cool.
Like,
I don't take anything away from the quality of the action in it. I just wish that there was a more balance with the episode.
Like, I put that up there, like, right under, I'd say, the Daredevil hallway scene. In terms of, like, fights that made me really excited.
I wish I was with you. I just couldn't get there.
When he does, like, when he gets the armor back and he shoots the knee cannons, like, oh my god.
That's also that again, all very cool stuff. I wish I wish there was more surrounding it as well. But the stuff that was cool that I liked in this episode is the point of it getting Grogu to a place to communicate with a Jedi that's out there somewhere, because this is what directly does lead into the finale episode. And it is cool to see that come to light, but they spent too long on it. Like, I didn't have to see Mando 20 different times try to breach I'm just going to call it a force field.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to see him try that 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just cutting back on that, this episode would have been even shorter.
Right.
And maybe more to the point. But there were just certain things like that kind of bugged me. But I did like the concept of it in general, in that Grogu was in a trance, basically, and couldn't be reached because he was astral projecting and going over the Rainbow Road. But yeah, ultimately, I just wish I got a little bit more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's a me thing. Most people like you loved this episode, so
and it ended.
I'm in the minority on this.
It ended with the Dark Troopers, which are terrifying.
Right. Yeah, they're basically Terminators.
Mm-hmm. They're like if a Terminator and a Cylon, like the Centurions, like had a baby.
Yeah. And then got painted like cool Fast and Furious car black. But the next episode, there was more that I actually liked in the next episode, even though it again wasn't my favorite thing in the world front to back. Because it was still unbalanced with like talking. But the parts that in the Believer episode were the most interesting to me was the speech after the action, so we have Bill Burr's character back.
Mm-hmm.
And basically need him to infiltrate an Imperial base. And then 75% of the episode is basically just that. It's just like driving a truck in. And that was, again, fun action stuff. But I didn't feel like I got enough during that. But after all that action stuff happens, when they're sitting down with that like scumbag Imperial commander, Bill Burr's performance in this section is maybe the best performance through the entire show so far. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted more of that.
I liked the other side of it, and I think that whole episode, there was this underlying point they were trying to get across that we know it, but the Empire does not give a shit about people who are in the Empire.
Yeah.
Like that, like, you know, there's this idea of like, usually with a regime, there's a lot of loyalty and a lot of support, right? But it's a little bit different here, and you see that where he used to be an Imperial sharpshooter, and when he starts talking about all the men that were lost, like fighting for the Empire, and how like no one gives a shit. But then even before that, like you're watching all these trucks trying to deliver material, like, you know, hazardous materials that are getting blown up, and like no one cares.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh yeah, like they could have like fighters, they could be taking out the pirates along that route, but they're like, we'll see who gets here. And this, you know, there's always been this idea that the stormtroopers are sort of disposable, but they've been really like hammering it in that like everyone in the Empire is pretty disposable.
Oh yeah, from top to bottom.
But there was another interesting thing in that scene, which I didn't realize till someone pointed out. But the other big thing that happened is that Din had to take his helmet off in order for facial recognition. And throughout that scene, you'll notice he never moves his eyes to look at Mayfeld or to look at the commander. He actually turns his head, and he actually moves his whole head as if he's still in a helmet. And that's such brilliant acting by Pedro Pascal, just to like still embody someone who's not used to their face being exposed.
See, for me, I'm in my head, I think it's that he's in real life always wearing the Michael Keaton batsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So he just he has no muscles in his neck anymore. He can't move his neck. But yeah, I hadn't seen that. I didn't notice that. So that is super cool.
Someone pointed it out, and I went back and I was like, oh my God, you're right. It's like the way that he moves is if the helmet is still on.
This is the way he moves.
But no, that whole monologue was amazing. And I'm a fan of Bill Burr anyway, and we've talked about Space Boston before, and that would be a show I'd watch.
Well, it's just funny because I think I said this last time around, but like that was my least favorite episode of last season.
Was the heist one?
Yeah. And mostly because I felt like it was over the top with Bill Burr's Space Boston stuff. Because like it was a little too much for me. But like in this episode, he's way more grounded. He's way less of a cartoon character. And that's why I say like the front half action stuff was a little disappointing to me, to be like, to have that be so much of it. I know they were discussing stuff in the car of like, or in the car, in their Honda Civic that they were driving. But in the truck that they had commandeered, like they were having a conversation about like what it means that you're wearing a mask, and are you wearing the mask to not show your face, or are you wearing the mask to wear the mask? Like there was some of that. I just wish there was more of what that character's past experiences were, because the highs of this episode are so high but so brief that I just wish there was more.
Well, I think that was the big surprise, though, was that you knew he was like in the Empire, and it was like, okay, whatever, sure. He was kind of like whatever about it. Like he didn't have a feeling about it until they were actually in that moment when he was like, this guy is such a fucking asshole.
Well, it's kind of, but at the same time, like the whole beginning of this is Cara Dune and he just going back and forth of like, you're an asshole because you're Imperial, you're an asshole because you're a rebel, and it just went on for too long of the like lead-in of this episode, that it was similar to the Mandalorian going and trying to break through the force field in the previous episode, where it's like, you don't have to spend as much time on this. You can do other things. But I like this episode even more, I would say, than the last episode, because that scene at the table, this like deer hunter level interaction with people at a table is just an awesome way to have a scene. There's so much tension in a basic conversation that all of the tension of like the pirates raiding, like the nameless, faceless pirates trying to hijack their truck, isn't that tense to me compared to something like this. And so it was just more fulfilling to get that out of the conversation scene.
Mm-hmm. But then that brings us to the last episode, which I feel like has gotten a pretty mixed response, but I loved it. And
I think the episode in general is getting good response. I think there are pockets of the community that they don't love the CG of some stuff. And then there's
Sebastian Stan is right there.
And then there's other people that just hate crews that are all women. So,
oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
Which like, if you look at who he's fought alongside this, like during this season,
these are the most capable people he's
and these are the people that he just happens to have run into, right? Like it built upon this.
And one of them is his longest relationship of any kind with Cara Dune. So yeah, it's but yeah,
and we just saw Boba Fett kick like a bunch of ass. Like he's doing his own thing. And
I do feel like maybe some people are probably bummed out that he wasn't there, but I don't really care. Like that didn't bother me at all.
Also, special shout out to Slave One, which is such a cool ship, which I believe was actually the previous episode where they showed how the suspension works inside as it rotates.
Maybe I don't remember that detail specifically being shown, so I don't. That's, if it was, cool. Uh,
But that ship is super cool.
oh yeah, and it's if you play games like Battlefront and you're
Mm-hmm.
playing like the ship modes, like the dogfighting sections, all you're trying to do is get enough points to get that ship. Because it is the coolest. It's slow as hell, but it is super powerful and it's a tank. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the mines that it drops, which it was super cool to see because that was something that came out of the prequels that wasn't in the original trilogy. That was in the I want to say it was in Revenge of the Sith. Did he die in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith? Jango Fett.
Thought it was in.
Was it the end of Attack of the Clones? Maybe.
I thought so, and that's when he picks up the helmet.
Yeah. So it was in Attack of the Clones in like the minefield or asteroid field section when like those started getting used.
Mm-hmm.
And then they appeared in the Battlefront games, and they are so satisfying to use in the Battlefront games. That is maybe the best weapon in that entire series. But yeah, it's he wasn't really there besides like support to get them there. Of like, we need to trick them. Please chase us.
But also, like, he's not a team player. Like, it was like great of him to help, but like
he would have gone.
we're
He would have
talking
gone
Boba Fett-
rogue. He would have lone
like we're
wolfed it.
talking Boba Fett. Yeah, so like he's helping and like that's very gracious. They made a deal, cool, but like no, he's not like part of a squad. He's like he's definitely a solo adventurer. So like if people are bummed that he wasn't part of like the team, he wouldn't have fucking done it anyway.
Yeah.
Like he was gonna take orders from Bo-Katan.
Right. After they just had a fucking bar fight.
Right, which was nice to see Sasha Banks flex her wrestling skills.
That was awesome. I do think that like this is the most lore, like this show's lore driven episode of the entire series. And my screensavers just went on, so I got terrified that everything just shut off.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so it's interesting that I as much as I was arguing that I don't love that in general on the show, I do love it for this episode because even though it's technically a cliffhanger that it ended on, it still felt like a securely wrapped up story.
Mm-hmm. Which, well, that was the problem my roommate had. So my roommate's not a big Star Wars fan. And just to summarize, which we're assuming if you're listening to this, you've seen it, is that, Din does get Grogu back, but at the same time, he also seems to acquire the dark saber, which he didn't intend to, defeating Moff Gideon, and then who shows up but Luke Skywalker, and like legit like OG original Luke Skywalker, but like to the point.
Return of the Jedi.
If you're gonna
Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker.
Well, that's what I mean, though.
Not
but like
moisture farmer Luke Skywalker.
No. I mean, not
young Luke.
Most recent young Luke Skywalker shows up. But again, if you're sending out a beacon after the fall of the Empire to find a Jedi,
not many that could do it,
right? And then also, you look like a tiny version of like who trained him. Do you think he's not going to show up?
Well, I don't know if he knew. I don't know if it like.
If he's like, "Hi, I'm Grogu. People say I look like Yoda. Can you come get me?"
I don't know if it faxed him at like an image.
He's like sitting there meditating, and all he's saying is like, "I'm having a really hard time. Can you come pick me up? Everyone's fighting, and I don't know what to do.
I don't like this sleepover." Yeah. What was super cool about that appearance is. So the hallway scene in this is mirroring the Rogue One Darth Vader scene. To the point that some of the shots are like spot on. Like when Luke force crushes the Dark Trooper, it's when Vader is force choking somebody up against a wall. And I think that is beautifully done. Like to actually use that is very good. I will say, yes, the facial CG, not the best. It's a little stiff, but it's also a TV show. So the fact that they could even get it as good as it was is a miracle.
Honestly, it was pretty impressive because I mean, it did really look like young Luke.
It's not as good as like young Tony in Civil War.
Or even I think they did a really good job with Leia in Rogue One.
Yeah, I think this is technically better than that. Because I think that was like a late addition, so it wasn't super duper final. It does. Tarkin looks way better to me than either of those did.
Oh yeah, Tarkin really did look good. And he's not even live. Mark Hamill's still with us.
Well, that's the thing, is that's far less of a facial scan. Whereas this is, they probably scanned and smoothed Mark Hamill's face. Which it might have been better if they actually went with like a CG mask to put over the actor.
Or Sebastian Stan.
Or yeah, just get Sebastian Stan, because that would have been fine.
And also, he's already on the Disney payroll.
Although, maybe they're trepidatious about that because of some people's reactions to Solo, even though I think Solo is great. Because you recast a role like that, and then some people got loud about it and complained even if they didn't see the movie. And so,
okay,
yeah.
but also if you're appearing in an episode versus carrying a whole movie, those are also different things. But like, everyone needs to like chill out, considering the original, trilogy folks are
mostly dead.
Yeah, and like they're getting up there, and it's not, if you want to carry on the stories, you kind of have to.
We literally lost the guy that played Boba Fett originally this week, and then we lost
like
the original Darth Vader actor 3 weeks before that.
And we lost. I mean, that's just. I was mourning Carrie Fisher like last week because I really wish in this year 2020 that she was still around, because her commentary on everything would have been
so helpful,
appreciated, I'm sure. Right?
Oh my god.
So, but anyway, I thought like it made perfect sense for him to be there. I don't think it was like pandering or in any way. Also, like the way, who else is going to destroy a whole platoon of Dark Troopers like that?
Well,
right?
it is.
Like,
I mean,
you needed top tier. You need top tier.
I do think it is fan servicey, but I think it's successful fan service. Whereas
you knew someone was going to come to get him, and who else would?
Yeah, and it's like the thing with, if they introduced a new Jedi that we didn't ever see, there's a whole crap ton of backstory you have to explain with that and go from there. It's probably overly convoluted to worry about that, as opposed to just use somebody like this in this situation.
Also, Din has to hand over his son. Like,
it needs to be a meaningful character.
He's not just, I know he has a lot of people babysit for him, which I've joked about before, but like, this is it. This is the fulfillment
lot of
the
strangers
quest.
with candy.
Right. Here, hold my baby. I gotta go do a mission. I have a side quest. But this is a big deal, and this is what they were leading up to. But when it came down to it, it was still so hard. And like, I did okay watching it originally, and then I watched a TikTok video where they played M83 in the background, and I just fucking cried.
Oh,
I just couldn't take it. I almost sent it to you. I just could not take it. They made, oh god, when you know, when Grogu like puts his hand up to the helmet, he takes the helmet off, and he's just sitting there studying his face. And oh my God, somebody give an award to whoever made Grogu and whoever puppeted that, because the way that his eyes are just studying his face, and you see it, and it's just like, oh
there
my
was a
God.
there was a lot more CG improvements on the puppet in this episode that I think they knew they needed to do. So yeah.
But they did such a good job.
Would've,
like when he's just
for that,
looking...
whoever did that TikTok should have been My Father's Eyes. Just saying, would have been a better song choice.
But like it, and then I like when he sees R2 and like he's like, oh, okay, a buddy, and like
R2 does the excited dance. I'm very happy that happened. Like that's where a lot of the people get the fan service comments in, like the negative fan service comments in, where they say, oh, it's a little too much, we didn't need to see him. It's like, who fucking cares? R2 is my favorite character in all of Star Wars. That's all I want.
And also, there's like a little kid. Like, of course he's gonna feel more comfortable if he like sees like another friend. I know it's R2, but like R2
when I was
friend.
at Galaxy's Edge last year around this time, I was walking through one of the gift shops, and R2 was in there interacting with like a 5 or 6 year old kid, and it felt the same to watch that moment on this show as it was to see that in person last year. It was awesome.
And like R2 is a source of comfort. Like seeing him show, like, like things are gonna be okay. Like R2 is there, and I mean, because he's giving, he has to let him go.
Yeah.
And like he knows like that was what he was supposed to do, and it just has to happen. But my roommate was like, kind of like, well, now I don't care about the show because I was really only invested in Baby Yoda. And he's like, and I imagine a lot of people feel that way. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I mean, you can't just have I'm flying around babysitting like as a premise,
right? Because that's the thing is,
like,
you can say that you were only invested in that character. What did that character actually do?
That's what I said.
Because for the most part, it was there to be cute and get you connected that way. But like all of the interesting stuff was not done. But like the funny fun stuff was done by Grogu. The actually interesting adventures with plot were not. So like I don't understand how you could watch 16 episodes of this show and not have a deeper connection to something else on the show other than just the tiny little alien.
Well, he was saying it was their bond and their interaction,
which is absolutely still there.
Yeah, and again, it's not like I don't think we'll ever see him again, but like, the Darksaber has been introduced. Bo-Katan's like, help me reclaim Mandalore, and he's like, okay. And there just needs to be he needs to do other stuff. He can't just keep questing to find a Jedi to hand his kid off.
Well, and there's also the fact that like was he going to be a helicopter mom?
Right?
Like, was he while Grogu is in school? Is he just going to like sit in the back of the classroom the whole time?
Well, or even, I mean, we know he's not that bad, but at the same time, it's like, he had to keep, like, when he had to go do stuff, like, get a sitter, and, like, or somebody's gonna take him, or we gotta save the baby, like, back and forth, like, how many times can you save the baby?
Yeah. Like, that's the thing is, even beyond just this, there's multiple shows coming out of this now.
Mm-hmm.
Including a Boba Fett series, which is, I would assume, is going to be like a 3-episode miniseries, more than likely, because of the post-credit scene where he goes and kills, for some reason, a much larger Bib Fortuna than used to be in the 5 years.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you get some good eatings when you're on the throne, right?
They gave him Jabba neck. And it was they are not the same species, so it's a little bizarre. But yeah, there's going to be more stories that surround this character. Like, there's zero chance that Din doesn't show up in the Rangers show at some point. Like, he's 100% going to show up in at least one episode of that show. Which the more I think about it, the more I kind of warm up to that show, because the likelihood of Cobb Vanth coming in to be a Texas Ranger style character on that show makes more and more sense. But yeah, like, there's a lot, like, you don't even have to care that much about Star Wars as a whole, but you can still care about the universe that this show is creating without having to worry about only one character, because they've introduced a lot on this show. So
and I think that's the point of getting them all into, like, one place. Like, so we know Fennec went off with Boba Fett, but we still have the other Mandalorians and, like, what's going on there. And it's been referenced so many times, I can't imagine that that's not what's going to happen next.
Oh yeah, for the Mandalorian season 3, I would presume is the follow-up on the Darksaber stuff, because why wouldn't it be? That was one of the bigger cliffhanger things that they left open, is that Bo-Katan can't just take it, even though she kind of did do that before on Rebels. But yeah, they have to play out that thread.
I like how Katie Sackhoff does such a great job of her face just going, fuck! God damn it!
Oh yeah.
Without her actually saying it.
There's,
when he shows up with
there's
it.
a whole lot of,
like,
God damn it.
Oh my god, it's so funny.
But yeah, I sort of, to wrap it all together, while I like the episodes as a whole better in the first half of the season, but the highs of the second half of the season are so unbelievably high that you can't ignore that. Like, it's from finally getting Ahsoka in live action to the Boba Fett return to, like, this episode. We didn't even really talk about, like, the Dark Troopers segment where they're about to come out of the hatch and only one of them makes it through, and just the, like, the non-stop barrage that it's putting on Din. And then, like, they give you that little bit of, like, oh, well, at least the rest of them are just out in space, but it's like, nah, they're fucking droids, so they're just flying back onto that ship.
Right? Or even the fight between him and Moff Gideon, where he has the Beskar, like, spear, bow staff, whatever.
Spear versus sword.
Right? But, I mean, that fight is awesome. You know how I feel about fight sequences. We just talked about this, like, a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an amazing fight.
Yeah. That's where I say, like, it's a complicated thing to actually say what I like more, the first half or the second half, because the first half had better episodes, but this half had much better moments for me.
I mean, and I even like Moff Gideon. I even like the kind of, like, go ahead.
Giancarlo Esposito is very charismatic, no matter what he does.
I was suspicious of go ahead and take him. I got what I needed.
Yeah, you knew.
And I'm like, is this really gonna happen? But, like, I was like, okay. Yes? Like,
I like that you say even you were second guessing it, as if, like, for the most part, when a bad guy says something, you do believe it.
No, I mean, you know how
I'm tricked by bad guys a lot, so.
Listen, for a while I thought my niece was on the way to becoming a tiny supervillain, and I'm glad her empathy kicked in and made that not possible.
Hey, you never know.
But, yeah.
A couple of Tusken Raiders kidnap your sister, and then it's all over.
It's like I'm raising my own baby Jedi. I have to teach her the ways.
Sith, you know. Or even better, you'll fall more in line with this, a Night Witch.
Yes.
A little Dathomir to come in.
Yes.
But yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway, I'm actually, I mean, as much as I love Grogu and I have one and he's dressed as Krampus right now, but I'm
She
excited
put
to see
horns on him.
Oh, yes, I did. And a beard. Oh, it's a full look.
Now you just need to get a little Adam Scott figure to put right next to him.
Listen, I don't want to ruin this for you, but what do you think my holiday cards are this year?
Adam Scott.
What do you think I dress my dog up as?
As Adam Scott.
Krampus. Yes.
I'm just gonna keep saying. You're gonna ask me questions. I'm just gonna keep saying Adam Scott.
Hey, listen. He also loves Star Wars. This comes full circle.
And calzones, just like me.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't even remember where. Oh, I'm excited for next season. I as much as I love Grogu, it's like, it's time. We have a strong foundation. It's time to move the story forward.
Only a year to wait.
Yep. But that's okay, because I just got HBO Max, so I have stuff to entertain me until then.
Yeah, we got plenty of Warner Brothers stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is, speaking of which, that's it for this episode, and we'll be back with another episode on Wonder Woman next week.
Exciting. I'm pretty excited for that.
I'm extremely excited for that. It was supposed to come out November of 2019. So, yeah. That's one of the longest waits through all of this for any movie that we've had to go through. So, I'm excited to finally be able to watch that one. But
me too.
Until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye. Oh, and have a good holiday. Stay safe, please. Wear a mask.
All those things. Bye.